let's forget discomfort, comfort, learning. At what point are you not experiencing new things? Why? Start to be conscious about the unconscious or the things you take for granted. Start seeking out new things, as small as they are, because they amplify. You get addicted to being able to try new things. The uncomfortable bit about change is the elephant with his piece of rope around his leg. It's actually not hard. It's just you're being told it's hard and you're being told it's uncomfortable, right? The problem is we think so much about doing the thing that if we just did it, it'd be so much easier than thinking about doing it.
Hello and welcome to Career Jam. My name's Beck McIntosh and today we're joined by strategist, Imagineer, polymath, Finbar OHanlon. His ideas have helped launch IPO companies who've raised startup capital of $40 million. He has 13 patents to his name and he's here joining us today to share his career journey. Finbar OHanlon, it is wonderful for you to join us today on Career Jam. Thanks so much for your time.
Great to be here.
I'd really love to go back to those sort of very early years. When I had the fantastic opportunity to meet you a few years ago, you really stood out. Your presence very much fills up the room when you arrive. Was it always the way where you really stood and owned that uniqueness and your own space in the world? You know, what was it like when you were growing up? Is this something you've evolved into, or is this something that has been uniquely you from the beginning?
Well, it's interesting because if you looking back, I was born in Liverpool in England, and I used to talk like that from Liverpool. You know what I mean? So I had a very strange accent. And when I moved to Australia, I was 10 years old, and we moved to Manly, and I was put in a Christian school, and it was so different here in Australia. And I was this weird kid who spoke weird with a weird name, Finbar, at this Christian school, and I was super naive, but I was probably like a lot of kids. I was so curious to the point of being really annoying. Like, why is this? And why is that? And why is this? And why is that? And at the Christian school, they would teach us stuff about religion, like Moses parted the sea. And I go, how do you know that? And how did he do that? What was there? And they would just say, shut up, OHanlon, just have faith. And I go, what's faith? Explain faith to me. And that was taken as me being insolent and being hyperactive because I was always asking questions back in, I'm old now, but when I was young, it was, this kid's out of control. He's hyperactive. He just keeps asking questions. And for me, I was thinking, well, you're a teacher. You should be teaching me. Like, why can't I ask? Why am I not allowed to ask these questions? Why do I just got to And so it could have, I think what happened to me was I instantly went, I don't like school. I don't like religion, because I used to get the strap back in those days. So it could have gone one of two ways. I could have conformed or I rebelled. And for me, I was like, I didn't really understand when I was young. I was probably there's nothing special about me. I didn't understand at the time. I didn't like playing sports and I didn't know what I liked until when I was really young. My mum bought me a guitar and I just went insano on this musical instrument. And that's all I did. And so what ended up happening was I started realizing that, I'm really good at competing against myself. I don't really like things I'm not interested in someone competing or winning against someone else, but I love challenging myself. And what ended up happening through all of the chastisement and the being labeled as hyperactive or whatever it was, it made me want to stand out more in a way and want me to find out who I am and what tribe I belong to. And there wasn't a tribe to belong to and I was a little bit older. I started playing guitar and I started getting recognized for my guitar playing. And then I did a recording session. I was in a guitar store at 17 in Turramurra in Sydney. And then I got found by David Bowie's producer. I was flown to Melbourne. I did a session. Then Michael Gudinski picked me up and put me in a band. And by the time I'd left school, I was on Countdown and Hey, playing and touring. So it was sort of, I felt, okay, I found my tribe. I'm a muso. That's what I love doing. But I was so interested in the technicalities of music. So I don't know. I think to answer your question, getting back to it, I think my I found my place by being out of place. And I the more I challenged the things that I was told to validate them, the more I realized that by at least validating them, I didn't understand then, it was building critical thinking skills, and it was allowing me to test hypotheses whereby on the other side of what we were being told is actually a whole heap of opportunity. So I remember being really young and someone telling me about the elephant with a piece of rope tied around his leg in the circus, and he wouldn't move. But all he had to do was just move his leg a bit and he would break that rope. And that used to stick with me. And I used to think, if we're being told all this stuff and no one's allowed to question the things that we're being told, who started off by making the rules? And how do I know on the other side of that is an opportunity? So it became this sort of challenge for me to sort of, not to be bad, not to be a baddie or to be, someone who's an antisocial. It was just building critical thinking skills. And then I started realizing that having a brand and having uniqueness either polarizes people, and the people that are uncomfortable in approaching you because you're different will over time come to you if you're doing good things, and the other half of the people get attracted to you as long as you're adding value. So I don't know. I'm rabbiting on here, but my formative years were about being really disciplined to think one way, and it just wasn't me, and I just wasn't happy conforming.
And do you think that pathway as a musician really teaches you to challenge conditioning? Because you're always sort of evolving, being creative, you're around people who are equally stimulating that journey. Do you think that has also enhanced the way in
that's
which
a great
you
question.
evolve?
Here's for people who don't understand, who aren't musicians. Here's something I explain, and I recently did a keynote at Design Outlook. I opened this big conference, and I talked about this. So music as a language has one direction, just like English or Arabic or Chinese. It has a directional flow, and it has, but then it has context in which the words go. The order of them create the context. But the thing about music is it has the notes, which give like the words, but it has dynamics. How hard you play a note, how soft you pull down on another note, and that's transcribed. Then it has the navigation, so it goes back and forward and around. It is a multi-dimensional language. So when you learn to read music, it creates a visualization in you that helps you understand that language has multiple dimensions. And so what I mean by that is the spoken part of the language is what we interpret. But then there's the emotional thing that I'm reading on someone's face when I'm talking to them. There's what's happening around me. If there's sirens, so you become more sensory aware of the context that the language sits in. And so what learning music did for me was it really amplified my ability to learn how to write software. So when I started learning to code, people would go, "Where did you learn coding from?" This is way back then. This is like, geez, when did I learn? It's 2000 or something. And I started learning to code, and I just read a book and I started to learn to code. And people go, "Oh, that's impossible." But it was very similar in a lot of ways, to music. So music is this really incredible discipline and language that helps people connect with hidden parts of emotions, to read dynamics. When you're playing with another musician, you're playing your note, they're playing their notes. Together it's creating a symphony, or it's creating harmony. And there's a lot about that in collaboration, in language, in reading emotions, and understanding context, the hidden context in things. So what it did for me was it helped me to create a multiple set of mental models I could look through, and lenses I could view the world through, to be able to question things, see through different lenses, and then start to associate, connect the unconnected. And that's how I ended up building patents and software companies and raising capital and building teams, was because I could story tell about the collision between things that don't fit together. And the only reason they don't fit together is because people have been told they don't fit together. That makes sense.
When you're talking about music and I see the journey of mastery that you've been on. And when you are stretching out into the other dimensions and dot connecting into software, how do you move through a known area of mastery into forging into these new spaces with confidence? A lot of people, when they're moving into a new space, trying to take knowledge from one to another, there is a perceived gap internally for them in shifting that confidence from that mastery where they've been to potentially a new area where they would like to go, or even trying to join the dots. What advice do you have?
Our subconscious is our systems, our plumbing, our heartbeat, our lungs, all these things that are running our physical being. But it's also the autonomous behavior. So when you put your foot on the brake pedal, you don't think about it. It just happens because you've done it that many times. When you're steering, same thing. What ends up happening, in my view, is that when we get good at something, right, we start to relax. We start to run it out of mastery, right? So it becomes more like partly unconscious. We've got mastery now. We're not actually physically thinking about it. We can be in flow. But also what happens is our brand and our identity gets wrapped into that mastery. So when we take on something new, we're trying to bring that across, and that's fear because it's now our brand isn't attached to that. But when you go across to a new discipline and you look at that not as about trying to carry your mastery across, you look at it as the only way to improve your mastery. You attach a different type of meaning to it. For example, I've got a talk. It's on YouTube. You can find it. It's called "Being an Expert at Not Being an Expert." And it's tools to experts that I teach experts to go beyond being an expert. Because by definition, an expert is someone who can be measured against a set of rules. The more you can be measured against those rules, the level of expertise you have. And so then you get labeled an expert. It's the metadata to describe someone who can be measured against a set of rules. And so I say, great, where to from here? So you're a master, you're a guru, you're an expert. What's next? And what happens is a lot of people stop learning and they start teaching. And then their ego takes over that they're right and no one else can be right because they're a master. Whereas when you come at it from a different element where you say, now I've got my mastery, now I'm going to treat it as Lego because I'm going to break all my mastery tools and put them in the shed because I could pull them on at any time. Now, how about I reorder them in new ways and new sequences to see what happens? You can always go back to your mastery, but what this does is now this takes the rules that you've learned and decompartmentalizes them and allows the synthesis of those rules with new rules. And what ends up happening is it becomes more of an exciting journey of exploration rather than a transformation of mastery to another discipline.
Not everyone who has reached that level would really feel, okay, let's break this apart. They've built the operating system, they've got that automation to it and that level of confidence in the flow. What is it that helps you move into the comfort to discomfort? It's not a natural thing for humans. We don't like cold showers, those ice baths. We really got to push ourselves to be in that discomfort. So how do we sort of stretch into areas and make it as part of that operating system? How do you create those processes?
You start by being in discomfort. If you're comfortable, why would you want to change? Yeah. So it's when you start feeling like, oh my God, AI is taking my job. Oh my God, I'm not happy in my life anymore. Oh my God, I've lost my sense of purpose. Oh my God, whatever the OMG moment is. The problem is when you've got that OMG moment, I say, okay, who's got an answer for you? And you're already in discomfort. So I say, when you learnt your mastery, take yourself back to when you didn't know anything about it. How did you get to your level of mastery? It's through this process called learning. And I say to people, here's a great way to think about it. Let me ask you a question. Not you, Beck, just generally. What in the last week have you done that you've never done in your life before? And I just go quiet and people think about it. I go, okay, don't worry about it. In the last month, something that you've never done before, ever. Oh, okay. In the last year, and I go, okay, Take yourself back to when you were 17. How often do you think you were experiencing something new? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, quite a bit. Okay. So why is that stopped? Let's ask that question. Let's forget discomfort, comfort, learning. At what point are you not experiencing new things? Why? Oh, well, I'm uncomfortable. I'm too tired. I'm too overworked. And you go, okay, cool. So are you happy with your current trajectory? Are you happy with this? Oh, well, no. It's like, well, are you in control of your life, or is life in control of you? And then they go, oh, well, life's in control of me. You go, okay, cool. Well, then you're going to stay there in that place if you want to stay in that stasis and where you're currently at. But if you want to do something about it, if you want to take control, as simple as this is, start to be conscious about the unconscious or the things you take for granted. I could have answered by saying, this week I picked up a new low carb wrap that I've never used before. That would have answered the question. Oh yeah, well, I do that, but I don't. But it's like, start seeking out new things, as small as they are, because they amplify. You get addicted to being able to try new things. When you're in this, I'm not going to try anything, and I'm in fear of it, you're stopping yourself from growing. And so at least, look, this is my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I'm not a neuroscientist or anything, but I've lived and I live an incredible life. I haven't really worked for anyone. I get to travel the world. I get to have fun. I do cool projects, and people often say, well, what do you do? And I go, well, people call me a polymath because I do so many things, and they don't understand that, but that's okay because I'm living my best life. And I'm not saying it should be for everyone else's, but if you're in fear and you're going, I'm a master here, and it's uncomfortable me moving there. And I would say if you're completely comfortable in life, you're probably not going to change. There's no point you to do it. But if you are uncomfortable, I'm just saying that with a little bit of uncomfort, the hard thing for me to explain here, Beck, is that the uncomfortable bit about change is the elephant with his piece of rope around his leg. It's actually not hard. It's just you're being told it's hard, and you're being told it's uncomfortable, right? You don't have to like cold showers. I don't do cold showers. I know it's good for me, but the other things that I do that people go, oh, how do you do that? And I go, just do it. The problem is we think so much about doing the thing that if we just did it, it'd be so much easier than thinking about doing it, you know? So.
And I think you tuned into something there on self-awareness and that alignment of that next level of discomfort being in some way aligned to you a little bit more than an ice bath. And if people are tuning in and having a little bit more awareness of the drivers and not sort of being automated in their processes and daily life when they're stuck, then that's potentially when they're tuning in. I find people often lose their sense of self when they're stuck, when they're in that comfort place. They in a way forget who they are. They forget what those drivers were, and it's a very adult condition. You don't see kids stuck. You know, they're always moving, growing, learning, creative, stretching. And it seems to be a very adult condition where we remain in that certain place.
Just to the practice, two practices. One is to always, in your own mind, without anyone knowing it, without saying it out loud, when you're driving in the road, question, why was that signpost there, not over there? Why is this over? You can ask yourself questions to build a practice of curiosity. Right? When will we, if I said to you, right, go out and go on a drive and pick up 3 things, okay, you could go and do that. But it's just like me saying, go to the gym and pick up dumbbells and over 10 times over your head. Me telling you that isn't where the value is. The value is you doing it. It's just like lifting weights. I could tell you to lift them, but you're not going to get any benefit unless you actually do it. Just programming your mind to be curious and asking stupid questions. You don't have to ask them. No one has to hear you, just in your own mind. It starts to then, by asking questions, helps you start uncovering. It's like having a flint on a fire. It starts to build that curious mindset. Once you then build something that you ask those questions, then the second thing, which is phenomenal for social media, for example, and news. I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, but I call it the binary method. And it's been around for years, but I just call it something different because it's the way I codify it. And it's basically, everything is a 0 or a 1. And recognizing first that you've got 10 million channels of information coming into your head every day, just being aware that when you're in the car, there's a bus with advertising, there's a thing over here, there's something coming on the radio, there's this, someone's saying something, just being aware of that, and then starting to go, the information I can actually action is a 1, and a 0 is information I can't affect the outcome of. You don't have to do anything else. Just being aware of information and categorizing it will start, and I've done that, work with hundreds of people on this, and it's so simple. What ends up happening is you start to become aware of information, and you start to subconsciously start eliminating information that you start going, that's not serving me. Just by doing this without actually actioning anything, you actually start to naturally do this. And it's quite a fascinating exercise, because then you start to realize, actually, I've got a bit more time than I thought I had. The amount of time that's being sucked up by information that's got, you can't affect the outcome of in any way, shape or form. It's quite interesting. So, and that's another adult condition, right? We're just being, kids seem to have all this information and they can process it. I say we've got, spam filters on our email, and we've got web blockers on our browser. I say, what do we have on our mind? Who's taught us how to filter information? Where did you learn that?
I think that came through one of your TEDx's on the complexity of simplicity. And that fire hose, we're drinking from the fire hose of information. It's coming to us from all avenues. I think no one has one email these days. Everyone's got about 6 emails. Then you've got different messages and channels, and it's coming at us from all different places. So that ability to turn down the noise and focus our attention with all of that coming at us, then it is hard to find your place and who you are. And that's maybe why we default to the comfort, because the process is there. It's nice and easy. It doesn't step us out of that stretch zone. So coming back to your software, stepping into you're dabbling with software. How did you get from there to turning that into your own company? Like, where is the gap there? Can you fill us in on that space of time?
So I started getting interested in computers. I moved to Melbourne I got offered with a couple of guys to build a big music retail store, and I wanted to turn it into a computer store and be the first music retail store in Australia that sold Apple computers. And this is like 92 or something. People like this. Anyway, so I started playing around with computers, and then I started some of the software back then. You had to basically learn code to actually launch the software and work with software. It was Unix or Linux or Silicon Graphics. And so I learned how to control these machines, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, so I then started playing around, just being curious. I ever imagined me building a software company. I was just curious. I found something, and I was like, so my purpose at the time was muso, then music retail. But curiosity was like, oh, and then I started playing with that, and I was like, oh, now I'm on luck. And that opened up a massive world for me. So I had a friend who worked at a big company called Nortel Networks, and they were delivering telecoms products into banks. And he was saying to me, oh, Finn, we've got this big box called a BCM, and it's $20,000. And back in the days when telephone lines, that was like voice over IP, and we can't sell it. And I was like, well, why can't you sell it? And they were like, oh, Cisco's killing us. And I was just like, well, why do banks advertise on television? And he's going, what are you talking about? He goes, we're talking about it. And I'm like, so if banks are advertising on television, what are they advertising? They're trying to advertise to get people in the branch to buy their products. So why don't they have the television ads in the branch where they're not spending ad money on television? You've got them in the branch. The chance of them transacting is right when they're at the teller. So why wouldn't you have the ads then? And he goes, doesn't work. Television doesn't work like that. And I said, well, how about I build some software that allows the TV ads that the bank owns to be beamed in over live television and switch to a playback? And they were like, you're crazy. Anyway, I built it and I sold it to Nortel Networks. And I was like, this is an easy gig, right? I can sell something. I don't have to go and work for anyone. I made multiple year salaries in, 6 months of building out a demo model of something. Hey, this is a good gig. So after that, I was like, well, then I built a number of tech, and then I built a big one, which I ended up IPOing on the Australian Stock Exchange, which was a video technology. And then since then, I've been building things in AI and that. But people look at me and go, how'd you learn all this stuff? It's like, if I said to you, how many people on this, listening to this call, have a car? How many people know everything about the electrical system in their car? How many people know how to get in their car and drive it from where they want to go? It's like, you learn as you go. So you don't, your tire goes flat. You probably don't know how to fix it until you fix it once and you learn. So for me, the curiosity was this thing. And then I started learning tools, and then I started engaging with smart people, and they would tell me things. And then I would learn how to put a story together and raise capital and build investors. And then I'd always have great lawyers and great business mentors. And so I have no idea what I was doing, but I just surrounded myself with really smart people, and I was curious. And all those people wanted to be on the same journey as me. They were like, we love your energy. We think you've got something really cool here. Can I be part of it? And I'm like, yeah, come be part of the family. And so it gave them a purpose. And so it wasn't, here's my discipline and my mastery, and you've got your mastery, and let's fight and argue about our mastery. It was like, here's a really cool thing that we could potentially do together. And, it had me lived in so many countries and worked with all these big, amazing people. And the thing that I know about tech is a very small part of, the thing I knew about tech was a very small part of tech, but it was something that my multidisciplinary as being a musician, understanding music rights and technology and the interface of them back then was really unique. And so it gave me a level of mastery without me being a master, just because I could connect the dots in new ways. And I had multidisciplinary approaches that came together in a new form.
Day to day, you were demonstrating you're taking action, and you weren't really, I think you made that point before, is that we're often very judgmental of what's next, and we're over analysing those next steps. But on that journey, that wasn't about you sitting back and thinking, is this the next best step? It was led by curiosity, but underpinning that was action every day, little incremental steps forward. It wasn't probably major leaps each day, right? Day one idea, day two capital raise. It was those little, the compounding interest of all of that work to where you needed to go without judgment. So you probably weren't thinking, I'm going to build $1 million company on day one. It was really, were you obsessed with the challenge? What was it in that journey which really lit you up?
What was really exciting for me was doing something that no one has ever seen before. And it's funny you mentioned this, as like when we're a kid, we don't overanalyze things, right? We give things a go. And as we get programmed, our operating system gets filled with knowledge and rules and governance and all this sort of stuff. We put that before our exploration, and that stops us exploring. And so the path that this led, as my life's been down, has been led by curiosity and exploration, not labeling it fast failing or ideas first versus needs first, or they're all technical ways to explain me going, hey, no one's seen that before. How can I validate that? Back to my kid being at school, in the Christian school, how do I know that what someone's saying is actually right? Well, having the curiosity to ask the question. You see, innovation doesn't come from making innovations. It comes from asking deep questions. And when we stop questioning, when we start explaining, right, we're missing out on a whole heap of potential innovation. So I think mastery is one of the biggest issues for us in being able to have this life of curiosity and stuff, because we're so busy defending a viewpoint.
And I think there's something in your early years. So when you talked about questioning and that disruption that it caused in the classroom, do you see that when you're advising big corporates? Often it's built on structure, it's built on following workflows, process, as you mentioned, strong governance. The questioner in that system is often not welcomed. Is there any advice that you give to individuals?
Yeah, 100%, because I work with boards and companies all the time. And so it's about me having empathy first for their processes. And secondly, understanding that what I'm talking about might sound very creative and airy-fairy. Everything I do is rooted in evidence, systems, processes, and methods. Right? I sit on the International Advisory Board of the world's biggest innovation organization out of America. They're in 10,000 certified innovators around the world in 40 countries. We have a book of 1,000 pages of innovation frameworks. So what I explain to organizations is that you can keep going with your systems, processes, and methods, And that's fine. Just like if you don't have any discomfort, you're not going to change. If your organization, if you don't feel any need to change, there's no point in me coming in here. But when I work with these organizations, most of my start onboarding is about asking a lot of questions, discovery, and figuring out how I don't tell them something. It's about how I understand how they work, and then me translating the outcome that they're looking for through a lens that will work with their systems, processes, and methods. And this is where a lot of creatives go wrong, because they come in and they disruption for the sake, and without any harm doing, but you've got oil and water. But the next mastery beyond that is being able to use empathy to be able to, I'm telling you about how you take your mastery and put it into pieces and then reorganize it. I do exactly the same with my innovation frameworks and all the things I do. I've got my bits in a corner. I go and discover and figure out what they need, what their vision is, what their North Star is, what they've tried, what their challenges are, and they become parts of the jigsaw puzzle with my stuff. And then I bespoke everything for that organization in a lens that is translated so they can have the greatest potential of change. In the earlier version of me, I'd be coming in and just asking all these questions and causing all this disruption because it's what I wanted. But when I work with a client, it's not about me, it's about them. And it's about how can I utilize what I know. And so my challenge and my fun then is more around how do I translate what I know in a way that creates value for them. So it's really a design thinking methodology type thing where they're, instead of human-centered design, they're client-centered design. You know what I mean?
And I think that's that design thinking methodology is very actionable for an organization, but potentially even for an individual. That idea that you have this, and you've talked about it before, is this very quick, repeatable process of testing and exploring and having that first hypothesis of about, I think I might like to do this. When you come back to that elephant with the rope around its neck, it's about conditioning. And I think we often don't realise how much conditioning we experience, and it's not until we go to another organisation, we speak to someone like yourself who has very different experiences, that it just sort of opens our eyes. And I think that being able to step outside and understand your conditioning, but that shrinking the change to just a hypothesis level, like that, just with an idea, to step forward into that design thinking as an individual is a very helpful process.
And look, talk about my image, for example. It's partially by design. This is who I am. And obviously, I'll work with clients, I'll pull my hair back and look a lot more normal, but it's depending on the client. But it's quite fascinating because someone might be watching this going, what's all right for him because he's crazy and he's got crazy hair. My brand and my image is there to stand out. It's part of it's part of my brand. But I pull my hair back, I look like everyone else. Do you know what I mean? So it's pretty much, it's not so much about, this guy can do that because he can do that because I'm not special. I'm just some guy who just loves to question things. And it's what have you got to lose by you doing it silently? It's a practice, and it fights the conditioning in a way. I just would love to share with people. Like, people could understand what's happening in my life from not knowing rather than knowing, and by connecting with people and not having any expectations around where the edges sit, pushing the boundaries are where the biggest innovation lies. And I'll often say to people, when you see someone who doesn't connect with you, who you go, he's not in my tribe or she's not in my tribe, that person's a bit of a weirdo, I gravitate towards those people because that's where the biggest innovation comes from, because they think differently. We get scared of going to those people because they're different from us. But the collision of their thoughts with our thoughts is where the greatest potential innovation comes from. So if you're looking to grow, go and connect with the unconnected. It's how you actually, same with data, connect with, I connect music with data or with AI in ways that are new and unique. And all these different things that I'm doing and exciting journeys are just from connecting or smashing together things that don't really fit together.
this technology landscape is getting really to that stage where we're seeing like energy and ag come together that have traditionally lived in different verticals. So what is your comments on moving with confidence through its adoption of AI? It seems like a really fast moving wave that's coming. We're really unsure about what that looks like in terms of its impact on day-to-day careers. And what's your perspective on where we're going in terms of that technology evolution and how an individual can move through that with confidence?
Well, this is actually my current passion. This is what I've been doing. So working with the Global Innovation Institute, becoming a subject matter expert on human capabilities and working on that intersection of AI mindset. So first off, AI, we're at the very beginning, not the end. And it's exploding in crazy ways. Now, if we try and attach our mastery to, will AI take my job because I've built these lifelong skills and, this is my time to get paid back and everyone should just, I know what I'm talking about. You're competing against something that works 24/7, that's trained on trillions of data sets, that can recall them in a second, that can cross-pollinate and analyze the data in ways that a human could never do. So if the car was being invented and you were on a horse at the time and you wanted to stop the car coming because you're worried that the car's going to go faster than you can run, zero-sum game. But we learnt with cars that we could drive cars and we could augment them, and now we can get across the country. We could never walk across the country. My point that I'm trying to make is what context are we putting the questions around AI? I think that we've been educated into a world that no longer exists. A lot of things that we've been taught and the mindset that we have is to put value to these things called jobs, which is a set of skills, attributes, and behaviors to perform a task for an organization. And being curious, what does a job mean? What does a job mean in AI? How might AI help me be the best version of myself where I still get paid the same amount of money is another question you could ask. It depends which question you ask. So for me, I think AI is going to be the most amazing tool to amplify humanity than we've ever seen in the past. Let me tell you why. First off, AI can replace the mundane, laborious tasks that we've had to get information that's relevant to us. It can happen in a second. Okay. Remember I talked about the language in a language? There's a lot of things that humans can do in understanding, making decisions that are based on the hidden language, in language, the emotional response. AI can do some of that, but not like a human can. The gut feeling, sense of humor, collaborate. There's a whole heap of human conditions that this AI will help us to amplify our senses and what it means to be human, right? It will take away the laborious tasks and will allow us to be more creative, more collaborative, tap into our emotions in a way that we've never done before because we've been so busy focused on doing this thing that we've been told that we have to do to make money to buy the things that we need to buy to survive. So the world is going through a massive unprecedented change, but trying to attach our mastery to try and control how AI goes is one way of looking at it, right? Another way of looking at it is to putting as best as we can some responsible frameworks in the step changes that take place in how it's adopted, so it doesn't go too fast that we can't change with it. But on each iterative cycle of AI growing, then there's controls put in place enough that, because on the other side of it, you've got commercial AI engines who are all fighting for AGI or ANI or just the next level of it. And so they're trying to be the ones that make the most money. So that's why we need that governance, because they're not going to self-regulate themselves. But I would challenge everyone to learn a little bit more about AI before you make judgment on it. As a software developer, I've got a team, Cogna, a data science company that I work with. They all sit there. They're all these great LLM engineers, data scientists, and I work with them. They've got their way of thinking, but I've been coming up this AI mindset component about moving the human capabilities into an AI mindset, because I think that the mindset of the people who are going to utilize AI needs to be upgraded. When we have a new chip in a PlayStation 5 over the PlayStation 4, we build a new operating system to get the most out of that chip. AI, we're the operating system. We need to upgrade our operating system to get the best out of it. Otherwise, we've got this crazy, amazing technology which can do all these like scary things, but being scared of it isn't the way to approach it. And the way to not be scared is to know a little bit about it. Here's the other thing about AI that most people aren't aware of. AI is the first technology in the history of humankind, technology, that requires you to know nothing about technology. If you're an English professor, you will get better results out of AI than a software developer out of natural language processing, because it processes natural language. But because we think technology is all about technology, and then we read stuff about inference costs, GPUs, language models, how many tokens it's been traded on, all these things that we don't understand, you don't need to read all that stuff because you don't even need to know that. That's the electrical system of your car. Remember I said about the car? Do you need to know everything about the electrical system of your car, or do you just need to get in and drive it? You can drive AI, and AI can, all those technical boffins can know that stuff, but you can get amazing results out of AI. I just think that what we're lacking is the strategic foresight on being able to see what the future is, align that with our current, or design a future where we can win, and knowing that one of the parts of that puzzle is AI, but working out what the inner roadmap, where that fits in, where it amplifies and where it augments people to amplify.
That's quite an exciting proposition of crafting. Whereas, there's quite a deal of passivity to, often career development, in that people are just moving from one thing to the other. But this is a real point in time where people will need to adopt new habits, behaviors, operating systems in order to really engage with the concepts, to understand it and realize where their potential interests, alignment really can go. Hopefully people are seeing an opportunity. Initially, there is that element of bad press around it taking our jobs, and Terminator style movies that are doomsday, but there's opportunity. In all that chaos and disruption, there is always opportunity.
Why is stuff about relationships of some soccer player and some girl get 10 million views, where you get some really amazing musician gets 10 views? They manufacture engagement. And that's fine. That's their job. But when we've got that critical lens, when we can look at it through that thing, we can start to think that, well, maybe AI, if Finn's saying that multidisciplinary is part of the future of us being mixing, I love horse riding, I love everything about horses, I'm an accountant, they don't fit together. Go to an AI engine and go, how can I build a business which takes my two skills, horse riding and accounting, give me 10 options for a future where I'm super valuable. You can do that right now on ChatGPT, on Claude, on any of these engines. And it starts to make you think, holy crap, when this engine can help me see things that I can't see and help me actually build a business plan without me building a business plan, wow, what an amazing future I have before myself.
Exciting, very exciting. And if we were to summarize that career arc that you've taken us on the journey of into a song, you're the musician, you've written the song about your life. The chorus part is the one bit that we always go back to. It's the catchy part, the anchor that centers the story. What would be in your chorus?
The song, The Never Ending Story.
On repeat. Oh, I love it.
Life is amazing when you look at it through a lens of being an explorer, and you don't let the baggage hold you down if you can let go of some of that baggage. I would hope from my chat today that people will take away that all you can do, you just try it. What have you got to lose? It might seem scary, but it's only scary because you think it's scary. It's just going against your programming, that's all.
Well, I think that's a perfect way for us to land this interview today, where people have come full circle on your journey, but taking a little bit of inspiration, look at their operating system. If we apply that to one actionable thing we can do today, just to open our minds a little bit more, stepping forward with that curiosity, I think it's something that everyone in their career can apply. If they're feeling stuck, if they're feeling that they're in a place where the change is happening to them and they're not owning that themselves. Finn, thank you so much for your time, and really look forward to hearing about your next steps. And if everyone can follow you, I'll drop the socials so they can look at your TEDx's, they can connect on LinkedIn and follow your ever evolving journey.